been in some places we didn't really want to be at. All of us has had to deal with some people that we really didn't want to fool with. The truth be told, if they never text, tweet, inbox, email, or call you another day, it would be just fine with you. Because you really just don't want to fool with them. In the text tonight, we find a place with power, but the place still had problems. We had a place with opportunity, but yet it was a place of obstacles. It was a place of cure, but it was also a place of crisis. Because if you look at the text, that even though what was in the pool had power, that everybody that was around the pool was powerless. The pool had opportunity. The pool had a chance. Tell your neighbor, I got a chance. The good thing about God is, regardless how dismal, detrimental, or dilapidated your situation may seem, God always shows you that you still have a chance. You may not see enough money in the bank. You may not see a way on how you're going to get the job. You may not see how you're going to stay at the job. You may not see how you're not going to hold it together and not pack your bags and move back to mama's house. You can't really figure out right now how you're going to hold your mind without it having a breakdown and God going through a breakthrough. You're trying to figure out how in the world that you're going to make it from day to day. But if the truth be told, he always gives you a glimpse of ray of sunshine in the midst of your storm to let you know that you still have a chance. I know the doctor told you that it don't look real good for you, but he has a way even after you walk out of the diagnosis and see everything that's going on in your body through the x-ray, you still have a way of God whispering in your spirit on letting you know that if I wake up in the morning, I still have a chance. That I know that he's not all the man he's supposed to be. He's more zero than he is hero. He's more deadbeat than he is daddy, but you're trying to figure out how in the world are things going to get better. He has a way of showing you not really who he is in his presence, but who God can make him to be in his future. He still has a chance. I know sometimes the child gets you heavy heart, get you heavy laden and downtrodden, and you wonder how in the world they're going to make it. You're scared about their future because of the problems in their present. But every now and then he gives you a glimpse of their godliness, of what God can have in store for them. You still have a chance. In the text it was full of problems, but the pool still had some power. According to the text, it was a place called Bethesda, which meant the house of mercy. Now here's the thing, it was mercy at the pool, but it was also grace around the pool, because the text says it had 5 porches, and the spiritual numeric number for grace is the number 5. So here's the thing, there were sick people at the pool, impotent folk at the pool, blind folks, halt folks, withered folk at the pool, but the pool was an opportunity, because at the pool, according to the meaning of the pool had in it grace and mercy. Let me say it in the right order. It really didn't have grace and mercy. It really had mercy and grace. We like to say that God gives us grace and mercy, but that ain't really the order you really get it in, because mercy is God didn't do what he should have done to me. Grace is God gave me what he shouldn't have gave to me. So therefore, he should have let me die and go to hell. But because mercy stepped in, he didn't do to me what he should have done to me, and after he didn't do to me what he should have done to me, he gave me what I really shouldn't have. I know I ain't the only one in here that can testify that instead of giving you what you deserve, giving you a piece of hell, he gave it from you and then blessed you with a little piece of heaven. If the truth be told, my brothers and sisters, you've done enough stuff already that you should either be in the grave or in a jail cell, but thanks be to God, instead of letting justice prevail, mercy stepped in your life and had a way of blessing you when he should have been cursing you. I ain't the only one in here that can testify, because even though you may look look at me in an unholy look by saying that he went to the club, that I ain't the only one that visited Luke over 20 years ago. I ain't the only one that ever done some wrong in my life. And if the truth be told, you ought to understand, before he gave me grace, he gave me a little bit of mercy. And because I got some mercy, I then can thank God for his grace. It was grace and mercy. It was mercy and grace. It was there at the pool, but there's the five porches. But at the pool had some problem. The pool had some problems because it had an infected population. Don't miss me there. The pool had problems because it had an infected population. What you got to understand, that everybody around the pool was sick folks, and whoever got in the pool got away from the pool, because nobody that's well want to hang around a bunch of sick folks. The reason why you can't get well may be because you still hanging around an infected population. The reason why you can't do better is because you're being unchallenged by the people you're connected to. And the only way you're going to be blessed is that you got to change your crowd, because your crowd is infecting you. Let me say it another way. In other words, in order for you to stop drinking, you got to quit hanging around old drinking buddies. In order for you to quit going to the casino, you got to quit going with people that go to eat but then end up on the floor. In order for you to be a better wife, all of your friends got to quit being divorced or single. If you really want to be rich, you need to quit hanging around broke folks all the time. I tell my preachers at my church, if you want to be a better preacher, don't hang around preachers that can't preach. If you want to know how to sing in the choir, don't hang out with the ones that come to choir practice but can't hold a tune in a bucket. You need to hang around some people that's trying to get somewhere. Your problem is that you're in an infected population. You really don't believe me. If you just come to church, you can still get in the wrong crowd, because sometimes who you sit around can affect how you worshiping God your own self. Because you can sit with the bougie crowd. You know that crowd that's too cute to clap, too pretty to praise it, too bourgeois to be blessed, too sedity to shout. You know that crowd that came more to spectate than participate. You know that crowd that's more concerned about Facebook than there is building their faith. You know that crowd that's sitting in church watching Instagram instead of being invoked with the Holy Spirit. You know those crowds that's there really just to watch and be a fashion show instead of being faithful. If you sit beside them, you'll mess around and get bougie just like they are, because you end up folding your arm, crossing your leg, nodding your head instead of giving God some prayer, because the wrong crowd can infect you. Tell your neighbor, change the crowd. It was an infected crowd. It was an infected crowd. It was blind folks couldn't see their way out. It was halted folks couldn't walk their way out. Withered folks that was dried up in life. It was people that was impotent, that had no power in their life. If you want to be blessed, you got to get away from people that can't see what God is going to do in your life. If you really want to be blessed, you got to quit hanging around people that's more stationary than missionary. You need to quit hanging around people that want to complain about their limp but never want to give out any love. You got to quit hanging around people that's dried up, mean, angry at the world, and don't have any joy, and will suck all the joy out of your life. You need to change your crowd. Who had an infected population. But then the text says when Jesus got there, he saw the man. He chose the man. He knew the man. The text don't tell me why he chose this man. Because unlike other texts, that it wasn't that he blessed everybody. In this text, he just put his hands, his eyes, and his mouth on that man. And here's what you got to understand, my brothers and sisters. Sometimes you ought to shout for the simple reason he chose you. You do realize you got some haters in your life just because God decided to bless you and not them. You got some people that don't like you just because he got his hands on you and he ain't working with them like that. The reason why people don't like you is because they still in the beat up Buick and you driving the BMW. The reason why they don't like you is because y'all were raised in the projects. They still there, but you've made it to your palace. The reason why they don't like you is because they got 5 baby daddies and they ain't married to any of them, and you got the same man for the last 30 years. The reason why they don't like you is because your child is godly. They're still in the game. The reason why they don't like you is because God put his hand on you. But here's the thing, I don't have nothing to do with the favor of God, because if he got his hands on me, he just got his hands on me. Tell your neighbor, he got his hands on me. I didn't manipulate him. I didn't try to do anything special. I didn't negotiate a bargain with him. For some reason or another, he just decided to put his hand on me. It ain't because of how you look. It ain't because of your family heritage. It's just because he put his hands on me. I don't know why Jesus loved me. Don't know why he even cares. Don't know why he sacrificed his life. But I'm mighty glad that he did. He chose the man. He chose the man. He chose the man, but then the man had some problems. The man was irrelevant, really. I don't know who he was. I don't know his name. It just says he was a certain man. He was nameless. But here's the thing. I don't find his name, but I see his need. Many times, we more worried about a name than we are need. Jesus teaches us in the text that he's focused on how he can help, not who he was helping. Sometimes we're more concerned about who we're helping than how we can help. It was nameless, but I think I ought to tell you that God in the Bible does some of his best work with nameless, needy people. There was a widow woman, I don't know her name. She had a son, I don't know his name. But I know they had a handful of meal, a little oil in a cruse. They were getting ready to eat the bread, eat it and die. But the Lord met their need. There was a valley full of dry bones. I don't know none of their name, but I do know that Ezekiel down there and talked to some people that had no ear, no eardrum, no auditory canal, no cerebellum of the brain, no motor cortex of the brain, no cerebral lobe of the brain, but he told them to hear the word of the Lord. There were some people that was around the part that had a little boy that had a lunch. I don't know his name. 5,000 men, don't know their name. Had women and children, don't know their name. But I do know that he took the lunch and fed everybody and had 12 baskets of leftover for the little boy to take home. He met their need. There was a woman that had been bleeding for 12 years. Don't know her name, but the only thing she had to do was just work her way through the crowd, touch the hem of his garment. There was a dying daughter at Jairus' house. Don't know her name. Jesus just told her, to a damsel, I say unto thee, arise. There was a man that was born blind at the pool of Siloam. Don't know his name. But as Lake Cusser said one time that the Lord spit on the dirt, put the dirt on the dirt, told the dirt to go wash the dirt off the dirt, and the dirt got his sight back. The Lord met their need. There was a thief laying beside Jesus on the cross. Don't know what his name was, but he said, this day you'll dwell with me in paradise. There was a group of prisoners in Philippi. Don't know what their name was, but they heard Paul praying, heard Silas singing, and the jail keeper, whoever he was, said, what must I do in order to be saved? I don't need God to know my name. I need God to meet my need. Tell your neighbor, I got a need. The man was nameless. He was
He was nameless but needy. He was nameless but needy. But then the man had some past issues. Jesus asked him, "Will thou be made whole?" Now watch the text. Watch the text. Jesus was standing in his present. Wilt thou? That's his future. But the man was talking about his past. You missed me right there. He was standing in his present, asking about his future, but the man was talking about his past. And the reason why you can't get from your present to your future is because you're still holding on to your past. The reason why God can't bless you to get you where he's trying to get you to is because even though you hadn't left from there, you really are still where you were at 20 years ago. It's because you holding on to the past. You need to let go of the ones that hurt you. Leave alone of the one that bruised you. Because here's the thing, when you hadn't let go of it, it's breaking you instead of building you. When you hadn't let go of it, it's having barriers instead of putting blessings. When you won't let go of it, you got a confession instead of a testimony. When it won't let go of you, you endangered instead of in power. And in order for you to get to where God is trying to take you to, you got to let go of some stuff in your past. Because according to verse 7, here's the signs of not letting go. When you don't let go, you always show the pain and the blame. Don't miss me there. When you hadn't let go, you always show the pain and the blame. The pain is I have no man to help me. The blame is that whenever I get to the pool, somebody always step in front of me. And the reason why you can't make it is because you still paining and blaming. And if you just let it go, God can get you out of your present and head you to your future. What do? You've been in a place so long that you start coping instead of conquering. What do? When you've dealt with a situation so long that you're getting settled instead of trying to be successful. What do? When you've gotten to a point in life to where something gotta happen. Tell your neighbor, it gotta happen. Either you're going to have a breakthrough or a breakdown, but something got to happen. You can't keep holding on like this. You can't keep dealing with stuff like this. Either God is going to get them out of my way or I'm going to get them out of my way myself. Something has got to happen. Either God going to curse them or I'm going to cuss them, but something has got to happen. Either God is going to change him or I'm going to rearrange it, but something has got to happen. How do I get out of this? How do I get out of this? The man, after 38 years of trying, according to verse 8, only had to do 3 things to come out of it. Number 1, he had to get up. Tell your neighbor, get up. Rise in the Greek, ergo in the Greek, which simply means to be recalled from the dead. It means to be awakened. Now, Pastor Jackson, in order for it to be recalled, the text insinuates that the man wasn't born lame. 38 years ago, he became lame. So, in other words, it was a time to where he was walking. It was a time to where he was moving. But whatever happened 38 years ago caused things to change. And he didn't really need God to make him really new. He needed God to make him anew. Don't miss me there. New is something original. Whenever you see anew in the Bible, it means something revived. In other words, you don't really need God to give you something new in your life. You just need him to revive what you already got in your life. You don't need a new shout. He just need to revive the old shout that you used to have. You know that one when you first met Jesus and you was hot for him. And before the preacher could get Jesus out of his name, he just went and you was already slain in the spirit. He just need to revive that thing that you used to have. You don't need a new marriage. You just need him to revive the one that you already got. You remember them days where you wasn't high or what? You were the one that when you were baby, booger, honey, sugar, boo, you need him to revive the thing that you used to have. You don't really need God to give you a new job. You just need to revive the excitement and the security that you had in the job that you already got. You just need him to recall what you have. You ain't catching me yet. Let me say it another way. It means to be awakened. In other words, the man, according to him, his legs was dead. But according to Jesus, his legs was asleep. But once you get it out of your hands and put it in God's hands, in your hands, it needs resurrecting. But in God's hand, it only needs awakening. In other words, you don't need Jesus to give you something new. You just need him to wake up what you already got. You don't need him to give you a new husband. You just need him to wake up the one you already got. You don't need a new wife. You just need him to wake up the one that you already got. You don't need new children. Got to go through too much to do that all over again. You just need him to wake up what you already got. You don't need him to give you a new job. You don't need new money. You just need him to give you an account number at Trustmart, at Wells Fargo, at Bank of America, and wake up the one that I already got. You don't need a new church. Just wake up the one that I already got. Tell your neighbor, wake up. This is the thing. When I wake up, awake carries a connotation metaphorically to mean to come to an awareness. It means that some stuff was already there. You just couldn't see it. In other words, in Mark chapter 4, when they awakened Jesus and tell him that there was a storm going on outside of the boat, Jesus didn't let them wake him up so he could wake up. He really let them wake him up so they could wake up. You ain't catch me there. In Genesis chapter 3, when Adam messed up in the garden, that when he walked through the garden, he said, Adam, where art thou? Now, we all in here know that God is omnipresent. So at the same time he was walking through the garden asking Adam where he was standing beside Adam wherever Adam was hiding it behind the bush. So he was not asking Adam, where art thou? So God could find Adam. He was asking Adam, where art thou? So Adam could find God. There are some things in your life that you need to wake up to, not so God can come to awareness in your life, but so you can come to awareness of God in your own life. Some things you need to wake up, and when you wake up, you understand it ain't as bad as I thought it was, because even though I've had an infirmity for 38 years, the waking up party, I've been here still for 38 years. You ain't caught me right there. That even though I had an infirmity for 38 years, I still been here for 38 years. You ought to be shouting right now. Maybe you going through some stuff, but the good news of the matter is that whatever is you're going through, that even though you're going through it, God is keeping you instead of letting it kill you. If the truth be told, you may have cancer, but you're here tonight. That's your shouting cure. You may have cancer, but you're here tonight. You may have had a stroke, but you walked in on your own 2 feet. You may have high blood pressure, but you got to strengthen your body to give God a prayer. You ought to wake up and see it ain't as bad as I think get here. Maybe you drove up in a messed up Mercury, but at least you wasn't in a Chevrolet. You wasn't shoving one foot, laying the other. Maybe you ain't where you wanted to be. Maybe you ain't got an SUV, but at least you had enough money to catch the BUS. You ought to thank God that it's still being blessed. Tell your neighbor, get up. But then not only do you got to get up, secondly, you got to take up. Rise, take up thy bed. Take up, arrow in the Greek, which carries the connotation to means to carry one's burdens. Now, Mother Jackson, he could leave the pool, but he couldn't leave the problem. He could leave Bethesda, but he couldn't leave the bed. Why would God deliver me, but still make me carry the damage that was holding me? Why? How is it that I can leave the ground of the test, but I got to take the test with me? How is it that God would let the man come out of it, but wouldn't let him get away from it? The man had to keep his bed for many reasons. I only got time to tell you two. But first of all, he had to carry his bed as a reminder. At least you get what I call in my personal theological philosophy. At least you get spiritual Alzheimer's, a holy amnesia, or divine dementia. And when you get out of sight of the pool, you forget about where the Lord found you at. Sometimes you need a bed on your shoulder to remind you that even though you've gotten away from the pool, you still got some problems. Because regardless how far I get away from the pool, I'm just a lay down away from getting right back in the bed. You got to figure out. I know you've been saved a long time. I know you've been shouting a long time now, but never get beside yourself. Every one of us in here is just a step away from being who you used to be. Get in the right corner, let the right person push you, let the right pressure get on you. That old you will still come up in a second if you don't watch it. I know you holler hallelujah now, and you don't use those vicious and vile vocabularies that you used to have. That even though you don't use them, it's still cracked up in your cranium. That even though you don't say the words, you hadn't forgot the syllables. If the truth be told, my brothers and sisters, that even though you don't do the stuff you used to go, you ain't forgot where you used to do it. If the truth really be told, every one of us is just a step away from being who you used to be. Don't get beside yourself. That even though you're godly, there's still a little gangster in you. If the truth be told, you're a Christian, but you're still a little crooked. If the truth really be told, my brothers and sisters, don't ever think that you done deliver yourself so well that you can't make a mistake ever again. I need to be reminded I've come a long way, but I'm just a step away from being the person that I used to be. You don't go to the club, but you still know the directions. You have still got some stuff in you. Tell your neighbor it's still in me. Tell your other neighbor, don't push me. It's true. That I need to be reminded. I need to get reminded that I won't get beside myself. I'm still just a bed away. Even though I've done a whole lot of work for the Lord, even though you went a whole lot of places for the Lord, even though you've done a whole lot of good things for the Lord, I never can get so holy and thinking that I've gotten better than somebody. I know there are some that want to put on the silhouette of sanctification of making it look like that they never made no mistakes anymore in their life and want to make it seem as if that they don't live in this mundane domain of world with the rest of us, but they already have citizenship of this celestial ecclesiastical liberty of the Almighty, and they don't really live here. They live in glory, come down and worship with us, and then go back to heaven while we still catching hell. But don't let them trick you everybody in here is still a step away from being who you used to be. Because here's the thing. Can I say it my way? Some stuff, thank God, I'm delivered from. But it's some stuff I'm disciplined from. You ain't catch me there. Some stuff I'm delivered from. I don't do it, don't want to do it. But it's some stuff I'm disciplined from. I don't do it, but I still want to do it. Can I prove it to you? Because God tells you he's going to change your soul. He didn't say nothing about he going to change your flesh. And since he changed my soul, I got discipline. But because I'm still living in the same flesh, I got desires. And some stuff I'm delivered from, but there's other stuff my spirit don't want, but my flesh still like, and I gotta be disciplined from it, because if I slip up today, my flesh will get the best of me, and the bed that's on my shoulder, I'll be right back in it, because I still have some desires. You looking holy on me, let me burst your bubble. That if tall, dark-skinned, Barry White voice was your weakness when you were 20, it still is. If long hair, long nails, high heels, figure 8 shape was your weakness when you were 25, it's still the same when you're 65. Only difference is now is that at 25 you could do something about it. At 65 you just think about it. Tell your neighbor it's still in me. But then it's not just there as a reminder, but it's also there as a testimony. In verse 7, we find a confession. In verse 14, we find a testimony. In verse 7, we find the bed carrying the man. In verse 14, we find the man carrying the bed. In verse 7, he was embarrassed. In verse 14, he was empowered. In verse 7, he was confessing while he was still on the bed. In verse 14, he was testifying while the bed is on him. Now here's the thing, when you've been delivered and when God has brought you out of some stuff, you ain't got to hide where you've been, because where you've been is a testimony for where you are. And where you are is a prophecy about where you're going. Because I don't mind telling you where I've been, because where I've been is why I am where I am. Let me say it another way. the pastor said, because if anybody asks me where I'm from, I just as I did him when we first met, I asked him, where do I live or where I'm from? He said, what's the difference? I said, I live in McGee, Mississippi, but I'm from Hickory, Mississippi. Because some people don't like to talk about where they from. Because there are some folks from Hickory won't tell you they from Hickory. They'll pick the nearest city. I'm from Meridian. But I'm not from Meridian. I'm from Hickory. Because here's the thing. Hickory is not where I am. Hickory is where I'm from. But I can't appreciate where I am if I don't thank God for where I'm from. Sometime you ought to thank God, not because of your goodness, but because of your grit. You need to thank God, not just you're saved, but because you used to be a sinner. Because if I can remember where the Lord found me at, I can testify about where I am. Let me say it so you can catch me. You don't mind talking about where you don't go to no more. The person that's still drinking don't call himself an alcoholic. But the person that's been delivered will testify, I've been an alcoholic. Because in order for you to secure where you're going and know where you are, you can't forget about where you've been. Now, every now and then you need to tell somebody, not where you are, but where you been. Don't miss me right here, because my testimony ain't just about where I am. The power in my testimony is when I tell you where I've been. Here's the reason: because where I've been may be where you are. And if you hear that God delivered me, it may give you the faith. If he did it for me, he may do the same thing for you. I get tired of church folks. They're like holding their holy nose in the air at folks that's still making mistakes. They want to make it look like they ain't never did anything wrong. And if the truth be told, it ain't that you ain't never did anything wrong, you still doing some stuff wrong. Only difference between you and them, they got drunk, went to the club, you got drunk, went to bed. They went to the casino, lost the whole check. You went to the casino, ate the buffet, stopped at $20. They go and dance at a party. You have the party at the house. They started the lie, but you the one that said, I heard, they tell me, don't tell nobody I told you, don't put my name in it. That everybody in here, you still have made some mistakes. The only difference between you and that other woman here is that your daddy had a good aim and a good shotgun, and he made sure that a marriage certificate got here a few months before the birth certificate did. Ain't much different between your child and theirs. Your child was in front of the club, got caught. Theirs was at the back of the club, slipped out the back door. Everybody in here got some stuff you got to be real about. Tell your story. Now here's the thing. If you let me say that in my Mississippi country Bunny way, if I'm still bed laying a little bit, I'd stay quiet too. If I take it off my shoulder every now and then, get back in it, and then get back off, roll it back up, put it on my shoulder, I'd be quiet as well. But if I really been delivered, the book said, let the redeemed of the Lord says so. And if God really been good to you and he really brought you out of some stuff, you don't be ashamed to tell somebody where the Lord brought you from. That's enough. Let me quit. That's enough. Thirdly and lastly, now I find that you need to get up. Tell your neighbor, get up. You need to take up. Tell your neighbor, take up. But then lastly, most importantly, you need to get going. Tell your neighbor, get going. Rise. Take up your bed and walk. That and walk, peripateo in the Greek, which carries a connotation that means to progress. It means to produce. In other words, sometimes you don't shout about promotion, but you can shout about progression. Because sometimes I can't shout about that I'm where I'm going, but I can shout about I'm not where I used to be. The man then didn't come from this after he got to the temple. But as soon as he stepped number one, he made progress. Tell your neighbor, I got progress. Maybe you didn't stop and pray for your enemy. But at least this time you didn't cuss them out. You just walked away. That's progress. Maybe you're not strong enough yet to walk up to that family member and lay hands on them. But at least you've gotten strong enough that you didn't put hands on them. That's progress. Maybe you hadn't grown to that person you don't like in church, that you can't hug their neck. But at least when you look at them now, it don't vex your spirit. That's progress. Maybe there's some people in your life you still can't connect with. But at least you spiritually grown up enough that you quit blasting them on Facebook. That's progress. Sometime I ought to thank God for the little steps before I make it to the final destination. Here's the thing, let me say it another way. When I left St. Louis, Missouri this morning, that even though I didn't have to get off the plane, Southwest made a stop in Tampa, Florida, before they got me to Fort Lauderdale. Now, I didn't wait to thank the Lord for getting me here safely when I got to Fort Lauderdale. But when I woke up and the plane had hit ground in Tampa, I told the Lord, thank you. Because maybe I hadn't made it to my final destination, but I have made some progress from St. Louis. That every now and then you ought to thank God. Maybe you hadn't made it to the corporate office, but at least you put the broom out your hand and you're sitting behind a desk there. That's progress. Maybe you ain't got the right man in your life, but at least God has given you the strength to get the wrong man out your life. That's progress. That maybe your child hadn't gotten really what you want them to be, but thank God Almighty, they've gotten out the gang, they've gotten off drugs, they're coming to church with you now. That's progress. You ought to thank God for progress. Says and walk. I got to stop. And walk. That and walk in the Greek grammar is a present participle, which means an action that takes place in the present but has a continuous and repeated action. Which means to say, in order for the man to come out of this, he didn't just have to walk. He really had to keep on walking. And all walking is, I just like put one foot in front of the other. Because Pastor Jackson, Bethesda wasn't going to leave him, but he could leave Bethesda. I'm going to my seat, but I need to tell somebody in order to come out of this, some people ain't going to leave you alone, but you can leave them alone. The liquor store ain't going nowhere, but you ain't got to keep going in it. You can leave it alone. The man kept on. He kept on walking step by step. And I think I ought to tell you that the more you step, the stronger you get. If you let me use my Baptist gospel sanctified imagination, I can just imagine after 38 years, when the man took his first step, he was like a baby. He was a little wobbly. He was a little weak. But every step got a little bit better. Every step got a little bit stronger. But now here's the thing. When you get strong enough to walk, that sooner or later, the same way you walk out of trouble, you're going to walk into some more trouble. But the same thing that got you out of that is the same thing that'll get you out of this. Because if you keep reading the text, you find out that the man left problems at the pool, but he ran into problems when he got to church. Because when he got to church, he didn't find hallelujahs, he found haters. And when he found the haters, they told him it was wrong for you to carry your pool, your bed on the Sabbath day. But the man started listening to him. But Jesus said that, remember, thou art made whole. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come against you. Don't listen to nobody that's trying to get you to go back to where the Lord has brought you from. Don't listen to nobody that's trying to get you to stop doing what the Lord delivered you in order to do. You just keep on walking. How did he do it? How did he do it? How did he come out of this? How did he come out of this? What's so special about getting up, taking up, and getting going? What's so special about rise, take up your bed, and walk? What's so special about it? It's not the end of the verse, but the beginning of the verse. Rise, take up that bed, and walk. Didn't have power. But what gave his power was when he said, Jesus said. The reason why you're going to get delivered this time is because Jesus said. Because his word carries power. Because once I get his permission, it automatically gives me breakthrough in my problem. You ain't catch me there. I have an older brother that, just like many younger brothers, I always wanted to be up under my older brother. My older brother was getting dressed one day to leave from the house when he was home from college. We're 12 years apart. I was only about 7 years old. While he was getting dressed, I was in the room with him getting dressed. He looked at me and said, "What you doing?" He said, "I'm getting dressed to go." He said, "Where you going?" I said, "I'm going with you." He said, "No, you ain't." I said, "Yes, I am." I kept getting dressed. He kept saying, "You ain't going with me." I said, "Yes, I am." When he walked to the door, I was walking behind him. He said, "I said, you ain't going with me." I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Well, you just gonna make me carry you." I said, "No, I ain't." He said, "Well, how you know you gonna go?" I said, "'Cause Daddy said so." He looked at me, shut out the door, because Daddy was in the yard working. And I saw him talking to Daddy in the yard, and I didn't even go over there. I just walked out the door, walked down the steps of the porch. And while they were talking, I said, "Hey, James, which car we going in?" He didn't answer me. He just kept talking to Dad. I figured we was getting in his car. I got in his car and shut the door. About a minute later, he got in the car, slammed the door, looked at me with an anger on his face, and I smiled and said, "Told you so." Because here's the thing, my brother knew you can argue with me, but you can't argue with the words of Daddy. daddy. You need to quit arguing with your enemy on if you're going to make it. You need to quit fussing with the devil on if your thing going to break through. You just going to tell him, I'm coming out of this. And how do I know I'm coming out of this? I'm coming out of this because daddy said so. I gotta go. There's a story I'm reminded of as I go to my seat. During the years of sharecropping, there was this woman and this husband that lived on this parcel of land, that worked it faithfully and paid their yearly lease. They had finally made it to the last harvest, to the last crop that the man was going to pay the owner and get the deeds of his land in his hand. His wife was a church-going woman. She left that Monday, headed with her church to a convention. He said to her, baby, by the time you come back, I have the deeds of our land in our hand. That Thursday when the owner came to his house, he did not come with a deed in his hand. But as most many was victimized during that day, instead of having a deed, he had a long list of false charges. And he told the man not only did he owe his regular payment, but he owed this by the next day. On Monday morning, he was going to auction his land off at the county courthouse. The man said, sir, this is all I have. While driving off, the owner told him, well, you better start packing. He went in the house and called his wife. His wife just told him, baby, somehow, some way we're coming out of this. When she got off the phone, she did the only thing she knew to do. She fell down on her knees and had a talk with the Lord. She said, Lord, I know you hadn't brought me this far to leave me. And whatever you tell me to do, I will do it. The Lord spoke to her spirit to go to the courthouse, make a bid, get a deed, and come back home. When she got home that Saturday, she told her husband what the Lord had said. He said, but baby, we ain't got no more money. The woman said, that ain't my part. The Lord told me, go to the courthouse, make a bid, get my deed, and come back home. That Sunday morning, she was led to tell her pastor what was going on. The pastor was led to call for a love offering. And when he called for it, people did what they usually do. They said to her, if I had it, I'd be happy to give it. And by the time they got through with the offering, all the woman had was $10. Ain't the Lord all right? That Monday morning, the husband was sitting on the porch with tears in his eyes. But about 11:45, his wife walked out the door with her Sunday dress on, her purse on her arm, and her hat cocked to the side. Ain't the Lord all right? He asked her, where are you going? The woman said, I'm going to the courthouse. The Lord said, go to the courthouse, make my bid, get my deed, and come back home. The man said, but you got is $10. The woman never stopped walking. She just said, that ain't my part. He told me, go to the courthouse, make my bid, get my deed, and come back home. Ain't he all right? When she got there, wasn't nobody there but her and the owner. And about 5 to 12, a dark cloud rolled over the city. The wind began to frantically blow. It looked like a storm was coming in the city, so nobody showed up. At noonday, the judge walked out and opened up the auction. The owner said, wait a minute, Judge, it's a storm in the city and ain't nobody here. The judge looked up. He said, all I see is a dark cloud and a bunch of wind. It's open for auction. Ain't he all right? He got to the woman's land. But what you need to know is, in that time, in Lauderdale County, Mississippi, a man couldn't bid on his own auction. He opened the auction, and the woman raised her hand and said, I bid $10. Going once, going twice, sold for $10. Ain't he all right? She walked up, gave her $10, got a deed in her hand. As soon as she got the deed, the wind stopped blowing, the clouds rolled away, the sun shined again. She walked off singing her testimony song. Why you trying to figure it out? He already worked it out. I turned it over to the Lord. He worked it out. Ain't he all right? I'm gone now, children. I'm through with y'all tonight, but I got to tell you, that's how I know you're coming out of this, because all you got to do is just get up, take up, and get going. Ain't he all right? How do I know it? Because this man ain't the only one that came out of this, because in the pool of Bethesda, the man got up, took up, and got going. But on Mount Calvary, Jesus got going, took up, and got up. Ain't he all right? He got going one Friday morning when they put a cross upon his shoulder. They marched him up Calvary Mountain. I got to quit here. Good evening, y'all. God bless your heart. I got to leave you now, but before I go, I got one more thing. I got to tell you, he took up, they nailed his hands, they riveted his feet, they hung him high, and they spread him wide. He dropped his head in the locks of his shoulder. Y'all know what he did, don't you? He died. Do you know he died? They laid him down in a borrowed tomb, but thank God for Jesus. He didn't stay dead. He got up early. I say early, y'all. Early. Sunday morning, got out the grave, heard him saying, I'm stronger now, I'm better now, I'm wiser now, I got all here can testify with me. You've been in a problem. You've been in some trouble. You've been in some pain. But you believe tonight you coming out. Ain't you all right? You've been down long enough. You've been sick long enough. You've been broke long enough. You've been depressed long enough. Tonight's your night. Get up, take up, get going. You're coming out. You're coming out. Wish I had a witness here. Look to your neighbor. Look them in the eye. Look them in the face. Hold their hand. I said, hold their hand. Said, neighbor, I don't know about you, but I've stayed here long enough. I'm getting up. I'm taking up. I'm getting going. I'm coming out. I'm coming out. I'm coming out. Ain't he all right? I need one more witness. Look to your other neighbor. Put your arms around them. Hold them like you love them. Hold them like a child of God. Rock them and reel them. Reel them and rock them. Said, neighbor, go on and praise him. Go on and shout. Because God said it. You coming out. You coming out. You coming out. Yeah. 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 Say yeah. 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 Ain't he all right? You ought to tell 3 people. I'm coming out. I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming. Believe it, anybody receive it, then you ought to act like it. You ought to tell the devil tonight, I'm coming out. I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to count to 3. And when I get to 3, you think about some Bethesdas you're in. You think about some beds you're in. And you declare tonight, you yell out to the devil, I'm coming out. Here we go now. 1, 2, 3. Oh, you got more than that. 1, 2.